So, all right. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Unity Clear Lake Spiritual Center in Lower Lake, California. Um, so, please, everyone, mute your sound if you haven't already. And I'd like to welcome Will Tuttle. And we're so honored Dr. Will Tuttle will be with us today. He's an acclaimed composer, pianist, and educator. So let's all close our eyes as he presents a musical meditation.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you everyone for joining us here. It's an honor to be with you as usual, and I'm just delighted that we're able to be together via technology this morning. So I'm sitting at a piano here in Lake County, actually, and I'm going to go ahead and start playing a little bit. Sorry, I just have to make sure everything. So let's begin our time together this morning by taking a moment to connect with our breathing and give thanks for this beautiful morning, for this opportunity to be together here in the spirit of loving kindness, of joy, of harmony and peace, of compassion, to connect more deeply with the truth that what we are is an emanation of divine love into this world, and that we are related, interconnected with all living beings. So we give thanks knowing that one life lives through all of us, the infinite love that sustains all life here. Filling every dimension of our mind, of our heart, of the physical body, with radiant health, freedom, wisdom, awareness. And we give thanks knowing that every day that we are alive is a precious gift, and that we are growing every day in wisdom, understanding that the abundance of the universe flows through every relationship that we have to bring more healing and love and freedom into our world. That the inner Christ truth that shines at the very heart of what we are, and that we have a unique purpose for this life that is unfolding every day for the benefit of all beings. And finally, we give thanks knowing that in our heart the light of wisdom is shining, that we may contribute to the healing of all of our relations. May all beings be happy and at peace. May all beings be free. May this beautiful and abundant earth continue to shine and radiate peace and abundance, love and compassion and joy. May we continue to work together to build a more enlightened society, a world that cares for everyone, a world that reflects the truth of the infinite interconnectedness of all life. Through the power and through the presence of the indwelling spirit of love and truth, we give thanks knowing this is so, and so it is.
And so it is, Will. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like now to continue with reading the invocation affirmation for our church. This is who we are, or for us, actually. This is who we are. First, there is only one presence and one power active in my life, God, the good, omnipotent. And then there is only one presence and one power active in Unity, Clear Lake Center, God, the good, omnipotent. And then there is only one presence and one power active in our world, God, the good, omnipotent. Excuse me. And the basic foundation of unity is these ideas. First, God is absolute good everywhere present. Then human beings have a spark of divine within them, the Christ consciousness within. Therefore, they are inherently good. Human beings create their experience by the activity of their thinking. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And then prayer is the process that affirms our connection with God mind and brings forth wisdom, healing, and everything good. But lastly, knowing and understanding universal laws, also called truth, are not enough. A person must also live the truth that he or she knows. Yes. And now, Will is going to play some more beautiful music, and that will be leading into his talk of relationships as a path for spiritual growth. Okay, Will.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and I'd like to play a piece of music. I was thinking for this one, it'll be a piece of music on relationship and relationship among the notes, right? I'm sitting here at a piano. There's 88 keys here, from the highest to the lowest. And so the thing is, each note is unique, right? Like us. And they have relationships with each other that can be harmonious, like maybe an octave or a perfect fifth or a perfect fourth or a major third or a minor third, or they can be kind of disharmonious, like a tritone or like a diminished second. But the thing is, sometimes those apparent disharmonies can create more richness and more beauty, like the tritone, when we make it in, becomes a dominant seventh. It really helps to create a movement and richness. So the whole idea is that in our life, we have all kinds of relationships, and some of them seem to be just harmonious, some of them seem to be less harmonious, but all of them can be a blessing, especially when we understand how to work on ourselves rather than trying to change everybody else around us. And I think there's something else to be said about this in regards to the piano, and I'd like to play a piece now that kind of illustrates this. So if I was going to play a piece right now, and say I play only one note, say I play like, oh, I'm just going to play this one, and I just start playing that note. Pretty soon you're going to get kind of tired and think, okay, now can you do something else? If I just keep playing that one note. So there's two things here. That note doesn't have a lot of power to move us, but where does that power of the note come to move us or to really express something? It comes from a couple of different things. It comes from the other notes, and it comes from its own true nature. So now listen to that same note. So the power of the B flat, as I said earlier, comes from two fundamental things. One is the other notes. So by itself, it doesn't have a whole lot of power to move us or to create energy. But when it is cooperating with the other notes and they're working together, that note has a lot more power. The other thing that's critically important is that note, the B flat, that it be true to itself. For me as a musician, when I go to play the B flat note, if that B flat, when it was a little baby note, had been told, well, B flats really don't get ahead in the world. You should be a B or an A or maybe an A flat, but don't be a B flat. B flats, nobody likes those. Then when I go to play the B flat, it's not going to be there, right? So the key is that each one of us discover our own unique note and present it to the world, right? That's the most important thing. And very often we're not encouraged to do that. We're encouraged to be somebody else because that will make more money, or we'll put a mask on in a sense, become something else, and then we can get a relationship with someone. We pretend to be something other than what we are. And it never works. I mean, ultimately, we have to be true to ourselves. We have to discover that. And so I think music really helps to illustrate that. We have these 88 notes arranged in octaves that have incredible mathematical relationships with each other when they sound at the same time. The fifths, the dominants, all these. It's fascinating, but these relationships can be very uplifting and very empowering because the other notes are working together. So this is the other main key: is that as a lone, isolated individual in the world, we don't have a lot of power in a sense, but we do have tremendous possibilities and opportunities as we learn to work together with others who are also true to their own note, being true to themselves. And this, I think, is something that's really the key teaching in many of the spiritual traditions. Number one, that we do the inner work to connect with our true nature so that we're living our own life authentically and not the life that we were told by our parents or teachers or the Walmart ads or whatever it is that we should be like that to get ahead in the world or to be successful. And that we also then learn to cooperate and work together and collaborate and bless others. It's really about giving, right? A note is giving. It's sounding out into the universe. The fragrance, right? The fragrance of the note, the fragrance of our lives, the fragrance of our thoughts and feelings radiates from us into the world. And we're very contagious. We have to really understand that. We're not contagious, I don't believe, in terms of disease. I think that's a big fraud. Germs don't ever harm anybody. What we're contagious is our thoughts and feelings. Those really go. So if you have a bunch of people who are afraid, and thinking they're going to be sick, they'll probably be afraid and they'll probably all be sick. But if you have a bunch of people who know that they're the manifestations of divine love, they're not going to get sick. Or because, really sickness in many ways is merely our body cleansing, our body and mind cleansing. And so the whole idea is to realize that the more we radiate love, compassion, joy, peace, and kindness into our world, the more that not only blesses others as the fragrance or as the emanation of our thoughts, words, and deeds, but it always boomerangs back, right? I mean, it always comes back to us. That's the funny thing. So, in a way, we shouldn't do it for that reason. When we're kind and loving, in a way, in a very sort of comical way, that's the most selfish possible action you can ever do, to be generous and loving, because it'll come back as abundance and joy into your own life. And that's the great joke. And the more that we say, no, I want to get what I want, and I'm going to use others as instruments to get what I want, the more we create misery and violence for the people around us because we just see them as objects. And so we don't really honor and respect them as authentic beings because we're trying to manipulate them to achieve our own goals. But it boomerangs back. And we find that we don't really have inner peace or happiness. Maybe we make a lot of money and so forth. So it's very important to understand at the outset, and when we talk about healthy relationships and relationships as a spiritual path, that we are standing on the foundation of understanding that what we are is not this body. We have to really clearly always understand that we are not this body. We are the infinite life that makes this body possible. Sometimes I think of it as a footprint on the sand. We see a footprint. We don't go up to the footprint and say, "Good morning, Gloria. How are you today?" Right? We know that the being that made the footprint is, and so this is a footprint waving, right? The body is basically a manifestation of consciousness. We are the eternal consciousness that was never born and will never die. And when we see that in others and address that in them, that's healing. That's how we become healers. When we see the truth of other beings, the beautiful, eternal love that is the source of all life shining through their eyes in them, then naturally we don't have to do anything more. We just understand that. The problem is we are not able to do that unless we make the effort to contact that and cultivate that relationship with ourself, with our own true nature. So the foundation really of relationships as that are healthy and that make us progress along the spiritual path is the relationship that we have with our own mind, with our own consciousness. And that's something that is important to develop, to make an effort to develop that. And one of the things I think is interesting, actually, since I'm sitting here at this piano, we're going to be leaving in a few days, and I won't have my beautiful piano here for 5 months. We'll be back in April. But so sitting here at this piano, I have such a feeling because it's really an amazing instrument. This particular piano, it's a Yamaha big grand piano, and so this beautiful instrument is metaphoric, I think, of each one of us. Each one of us is a beautiful instrument. Each one of us has a mind, right? That is potentially a beautiful instrument. It is a beautiful instrument. And so the thing is that if we have this beautiful instrument and it's available to us and it's our own mind, what kind of music are we making with our mind, with our mental instrument? And it all comes down, I think, mainly to practice. See, I think, when I was a kid, my father played the piano. And so I looked at him and I was only, 2 or 3 years old and I was already wanting to play. And he said, yeah, you can play like me. You just have to practice. And so I thought, all right, I'll practice, and I started taking piano lessons from him when I was about maybe 8 or 9. And I just kept on going. And ended up being a church organist when I was in high school. And then I've been playing concerts, for the last 50 years. But the whole idea that leads to that possibility is discipline and practice, right? Discipline and practice. A lot of people don't like those words. They think discipline, practice, oh, that doesn't sound like very much fun. But the whole idea is that discipline and practice are the gateways to joy and freedom and everything else. The fact that I sat, I used to have to sit at the piano when I was a kid and practice for 45 minutes a day and write on the chart on the kitchen bulletin board that I did it that day, and sometimes I didn't want to. I wanted to go out and play, but I thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to practice so I can get better at the piano, so I did. And that discipline opened up the doorway for freedom and abundance and joy and self-expression and endless incredible experiences of traveling all over the world and playing concerts in Armenia and China and India and Africa and Australia and New Zealand, all over the world, and meeting amazing people. All of that, it comes out of these seeds that we sow ourselves. So practice. So the point is, we have a mind that's like a piano, right? It's like a beautiful instrument. But we're not taught typically in our society, by our family, by our school, by the institutions in our society, how to use that instrument of our mind well to make beautiful music. So instead of that, we have the example very often of people around us who are like banging on the keys, that's all they do is, yelling and arguing and fighting and being upset and anxious and just making a lot of noise with their piano, or they have their drink and they spill it into the action, and half the keys don't even work anymore. It never gets tuned. And so we have this beautiful potential, the mind, like a great piano, and it's like, can't even make good music anymore because maybe we've taken drugs and drunk alcohol and who knows what. So the whole idea is purify our consciousness, right? Live a life of kindness and clarity and purity. It really is important. It's up to us. Practice these things. And I'm so grateful. Like in my own case, I was surrounded by people taking drugs and drinking alcohol as a kid growing up, and in college especially. But for the last 50 years, I mean, no, never, ever, ever. I mean, it's like you don't want to mess up this beautiful instrument that we have. And so it's really important to respect the instrument that we've been given by the divine love. We are an emanation, and take care of the piano and tune it every day, right? So every day to take time to connect with the silence out of which all music emerges, right? We have the silence. And when I play a chord, say I play an F chord, and then I play maybe a B flat chord, and then maybe a C, and then it just wants to go back to F. And there's this underlying idea that out of silence, all the infinite possibilities of music can emerge, and they'll all return again to silence eventually. And each one of us is like that. We're a song that is born like a melody that starts with chords and rhythms and unique patterns. And then we're heard for a while, maybe for 20 or 50 or 80 years as a melody, but the melody will return again to silence. Silence is always present. It is within the music, and it is outside the music, and it is the source of the music, and the music returns to the silence. So if every day we can connect with silence, we're connecting with our true nature, the source of the music that we are, and we are music. And then when we do that, then we can feel into intuitively the other notes around us, the other melodies. So I want to talk a little bit about that, about the relationships that we have. And I have this brand new book. It just came out. It's called The World Peace Way. It's a companion book to the new book that just came out like in May called Food for Freedom. It's also a companion book for the first book called The World Peace Diet. So you have The World Peace Diet, The World Peace Way. The underlying idea in all these books really is, first of all, to try to create a foundation of nutrition, of food, that is healthy and does not cause violence. All right, so that's a key thing. And to me, that's a really important foundation for healthy relationships, is our relationship with our food, because food is our most intimate connection with nature and with our society. So I've been eating what you would call a plant-sourced or a vegan diet for the last 50 years now, well, 45 years. And I think that's a really helpful foundation for anyone. If you want to have harmony in your life, you want to have healthy relationships, it's really important to eat a healthy diet. If I'm eating a lot of toxins and chemicals, if I'm eating foods that cause suffering to cows and pigs and chickens and fishes, I'm eating misery and terror and fear and pain and despair and causing that and building this beautiful body temple that I am with bricks of misery and violence. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be an underlying tension and conflict within me because I'm eating that and I'm causing that. And as we sow, so shall we reap. So that's one important foundation, is to just be mindful of the food we're eating, that it be as healthy as possible, as free of violence as possible, as free of toxins as possible. So food, water, air, all those things, those are important. And then the other kind of food that we eat, as Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, talked about, is what we're thinking, right? What kind of thoughts are we entertaining? Are we thinking thoughts of gratitude and love and kindness? Because our thoughts really are a diet. We're eating food, we're drinking water, we're consuming media. What kind of media are we consuming? What kind of books are we reading? The thing is, if we're eating junk news and eating junk food, and pretty soon we're going to be thinking junk thoughts of a lot of fear and anger and blaming and shaming and criticizing and divisiveness. And that's rampant in the media. It's rampant in the world, and that's how you make money on people, right? They haven't made any money on me in the medical industry in 50 years. I haven't been to a doctor or done anything, gone to a drugstore for anything in 50 years. So that's nothing to be proud of. It's just, taking responsibility for my health, for my food, for my thoughts, for the media. I mean, we can all do that. And I think as we do that, we begin to realize that our destiny is in our own hands in many ways. It's really up to us. The less I depend on outside authorities to tell me what I should do, how I should eat, what kind of medication I should take. We should really use our own inner connection with divine love, the divine spirit within, and be our own advisor, right? Be our own doctor, be our own spiritual guide. We can be, but the important thing is taking time every day to enter the silence, which is the pure potential of being that we have available to us. And when we do that, then we can begin to connect with our inner wisdom. So the two keys really, I think, to healthy relationships are the outer world, the food that we're eating, that we're consuming, reading spiritual books that are focused on wisdom, truth. There's so many wonderful spiritual teachings in books, and also I guess nowadays in videos and so forth. So find those, and cultivate gratitude. It's really important. Every morning we have the opportunity, like we can wake up, we can open our eyes, or even before we open our eyes, and give thanks for another day of learning and growing and contributing and being part of the awakening of humanity during these very important times. What a fantastic thing. And when we have that kind of feeling, every cell in our body is activated. The cells in this physical body, they're waiting around for us to tell them what to do. Right? If I get up in the morning and I say, "Oh gosh, it's Monday. Oh, I don't really want to go to work. I don't want to do anything." The cells in our body are going, "Well, what the heck? I mean, this guy doesn't even want to do anything. Let's just, let's get sick." So the whole idea is, when we activate our consciousness, our body is created by our consciousness. It is created by our consciousness. The body is not some abstract thing. It's a manifestation of our thinking and so forth. I mean, there's a lot I can talk about with that, but basically those are the two things: the inner silence, the health and purity of our outer life and our inner life, and then that leads to our relationships with other people. The apparent other people, are they really other out there? I mean, that's the thing. We think we see someone, we think that's somebody else. And in many ways, it's like when we're looking out over the ocean and we see waves coming in on the ocean. Each one of those waves might say, "Oh, here I am, I'm an individual wave." And yet, from a higher point of view, all these waves, it's just the ocean happening, really. And we have to understand that what we are is God happening, in a sense. We are divine love happening, and so is everyone else. All the animals we see, all the human beings we see, the trees, everything, it all is. We're all related. And when we see that and we feel that, then we have a sense of solidarity and camaraderie and connection with all expressions of life. We don't need something outside of ourselves to make us happy. We're happy because we're part of a beautiful world. We are that. And that inner joy comes from within us. If the biggest problem in relationships is when people think, "Yeah, I'm not that happy. If I just could find the right person, then I'd be happy." No, you are the right person. You're the only one that'll make you happy. But when we find that, then we can give to others. We can give them and help them to be happy. And the thing is, that's when we actually achieve a sense of happiness even more, because we're helping others to be happy. I'm going to read 3 quotes that I have here in the beginning of this chapter that I wrote on healthy relationships. So these are really profound, I think, especially the first one. The first one, this one here is amazing. This is Shantideva, okay? Shantideva was a great Buddhist teacher. And this is what he says. He says, "Whatever joy there is in this world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. And whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from desiring myself to be happy." Think about that, right? Whatever joy there is in the world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. Whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from desiring myself to be happy. I mean, we live in a society that teaches the opposite of that we'll be happy by desiring ourselves to be happy. It never works that way. The great joy comes when we do the best we can to be a vehicle to emanate joy and love and kindness and happiness to others. That's really the foundation. So I think if we understand that, and when we're driving the car and we see people, just send them love. When we're standing in line at the post office, we can send love. We can send love all the time. There's no charge. We can just always radiate love, even to people who are giving us a problem. They're suffering, they're wounded. And so when we understand that, we can begin to, instead of trying to get something, trying to get people to like us or whatever, forget that. Just be loving and giving and help others. Everyone needs help. Everyone is suffering more than we realize, actually. It's not easy to be in this world. To be a human being is not easy. it's like being at the gym. I can see Andy's at the gym here. Hi, Andy. If we come to the earth is like a gym, a gymnasium, right? You come here and we come here to get stronger. That's why we come here. So the earth is a gymnasium, a gym where it's really difficult. I mean, there's heavy weights and major challenges. And so it's not an easy place to come, but in a way that's good. We have all kinds of challenges that come our way, especially in relationships, and that's how we know we can grow. Our ego, right, that like the little self that is really in many ways the problem, would love to have everyone just be nice to us all the time and just say just what we want to hear all the time, right? That's what the ego wants. But how great it is that it's not that way. That, like when I'm married to someone, like I'm married to Madeline, I wish she would just always say nice things to me, just how I want to hear them, right? Well, the beautiful thing is that doesn't happen, and that helps me to learn and grow and be more sensitive to her and be that for her, right? The more we can understand that these are the very things that reveal our own limitations and delusions so that we can heal them. All right, the second quote is by Cesar Chavez. He says, "Only when we have become nonviolent toward all life will we have learned to live well ourselves. Only when we have become nonviolent toward all life will we have learned to live well ourselves." So I think, again, this is critically important to understand. And I already talked about this. So eating a totally plant-based diet and so forth, and just living our lives to be nonviolent as much as possible it opens the door for our own well living. And well living well, is automatically a source of happiness and fulfillment and our relationships. And then finally, Krishnamurti, he says, "Freedom and love go together. To love is not to ask anything in return, not even to feel that you are giving something. And it is only such love that can know freedom." This is a really important point, because a lot of times people think that love is some kind of a prison. And in many ways, we make it into a prison. We want, I love you, so I want you to be like this, right? And if you're not like this, I'm not going to love you. That kind of thing. That we really create prisons for each other all the time in our relationships. We want to be loved, so we say, "Oh yeah, I won't do this, I won't do that." And we want other people to be the same way, and we create these prisons. And what he's saying is the opposite of that. That is the only freedom is in love, and love is the path to freedom. So it means that essentially we stop trying to confine others into our agendas, and see them as instruments to be used to get what we want, and begin to live our life coming from a center of fulfillment within ourselves, and then work together with them on a mission. See, I think that's really empowering and beautiful. That's what Madeline and I emphasize actually quite a bit in our relationship. We feel that there's three of us, right? There's Will, there's Madeline, and then there's Blossom. Who's Blossom? Blossom is the relationship, right? And so it's important to think about what's best for Will, what's best for Madeline, and what's best for Blossom. Blossom is the relationship, and it's the mission that we have together. It's like, why are we together? We're here to awaken, right? Spiritually, we're here to bless the world in our own unique way, to bring compassion and kindness. And so Blossom is, in a way, the third entity in a relationship. It's the relationship itself and the higher dimension within which the two apparently individual beings are functioning. And I think we can see that in our society as well, that there's the individuals, and then we co-create something together, right? We co-create our society, and we co-create our leaders, right? Our leaders are always a reflection of the people. And so it's really important, if we want to have better leaders, we need to raise our consciousness. If we ourselves are basically greedy and violent in our relationship with each other and with nature and with animals, how can we expect to think that we're going to have leaders, in relationship with leaders who are loving and kind and caring and so forth, if we're not that way ourselves? So ultimately, the world is a mirror. This is the most important thing to understand. It's a mirror of ourselves. And when we understand that, It's like Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, always emphasized, if we want to improve our life, instead of trying to do it through manipulating the outer world, to go to the source, to go to our connection, our relationship with our true nature. So I want to tell just a couple of stories, and then I'm going to start to kind of wrap it up. So one of the stories I think that's kind of interesting is a story that happened when Madeline and I first got together. And I think it's kind of illustrative. So we got together back in, when was it? Actually, it's so interesting. Tomorrow, November 11th, it was November 11th, 1992, 11/11/11. Madeline came over from Switzerland. I had met her briefly in Switzerland when I played the piano, and she had kind of fallen in love with the piano music and decided to come over and help me to make a CD, contribute the art. I was going to work on a CD, so we needed to find a piano. And we found this piano down in San Jose, and we were living way out on a dirt road in the wilderness in Healdsburg, California, in this little tiny house that we rented. And we had this grand piano brought all the way up on this dirt road, and we started making this baby, this CD. And I was playing the piano, and we didn't know each other very well. She had just come over from Switzerland, and she was a Swiss, and I was an American, and so we would get into these conflicts with different expectations and so forth. So one evening, that happened. And I remember I was sitting there and I was like upset with her for what she said, and she was upset with me for what I said. And so I looked over at her. She was sitting at her desk, and I thought, I should do something here. So I wrote a little kind of a love note, but I didn't even want to, I couldn't bring myself to even give it to her. So I folded it up into a little paper airplane, and I just kind of threw it over, and it landed on her desk. And she looked down like, and she picked it up, and she, she smiled, and we got back together, and it kind of, helped to heal that little misunderstanding that we had had. And so we did that a few times in the first year or two. Every once in a while I'd throw a paper airplane, and so that became, that was kind of an interesting thing. But anyway, so what happened was, many years later, just like maybe 4 years ago, I guess, we were in China, and I was giving lectures, promoting vegan living, and I was also playing the piano, and Madeline joined me the third time I did it. She came with me, and her art, and she joined with me in playing the flute. And the funny thing was, we would go to these cities. Every day we were in a different city in China, and we'd have big crowds. I mean, we would always have 500 or 800 people in these big halls, and they'd always have a grand piano on the stage. Beautiful, I mean, really beautiful situations. And we were, really treated well. Anyway, so I was one city after the next. We were doing this, and after about the third or fourth city, the organizers came up to us and they said, it's real. What you're saying is great. Your teachings, your lectures, your music is really interesting. But what we want to hear actually is about relationships, because you and Madeline, there's so much love flowing between you, and we've never seen anything like that. It's like, what are your secrets? Tell us. We want to know that. That's the most important thing we're most interested in. And so I said, all right. So, we got up and I talked a little bit and talked about what I've said already, that, how important it is to have a clean, healthy diet, to have a mission together, to meditate regularly, to get inner peace. And then I just mentioned this little story that I just told you about the airplanes, and if things get bad, then just make a love note and throw an airplane. And so the people liked it, and I played the piano, and Madeline also spoke a little bit. And then we went on, as we always did, by train to the next city. And we got there to the hall early, and we're getting ready to get set up. And we noticed in the hall, again, there was like 500 chairs. And all the chairs in China, very often, there's a chair with a little table, because they love tea, and they very often serve tea along with when people are sitting there. So I was checking out the piano and everything ahead of time up on the stage, and I noticed, and Madeline told me, she said, on every single table, they have a little paper airplane. And so I said, really? So basically, the whole thing started, and I started giving my talk, and then I said, I noticed you all have a paper airplane because apparently the people in the prior city had told them the story and they thought, well, it'd be fun to just make a bunch of paper airplanes and everybody can have one. So I said, all right, everybody just write a little love note on your airplane and throw it to somebody. And so they started doing that. They started writing love notes and throwing them. And of course, with paper airplanes, you never know where they're going to go. So they throw it this way and we go over that way. And so people were getting all these flying love notes coming from left and right. And they just loved it. It was really fun. And then we went on. And then at the very end, they had a closing. And all these Chinese people who were in a choir came out and sang this Chinese folk song at the end. But the funny thing at the very end was everybody was standing and singing this folk song all together in jubilation. And then they brought out this whole big bag of paper airplanes that the choir had, and they started throwing like lots of those. And so I was standing there in this room of like close to 1,000 people, all throwing paper airplanes and laughing and singing and dancing and everything. And I just thought, this is, I had tears in my eyes. It was like, this is incredible. I mean, think of how a seed is sown and how it grows, right? Like I think it was like 22 years earlier or something like that. I was all alone with Madeline in this little house out on a dirt road, and I threw a paper airplane, kind of love, right? And it marinated, or it just developed energy in the cosmos for 22 years, that action, and then it just exploded in China with 1,000 people throwing paper airplanes and loving and dancing and singing. That's how it works. That's how the universe works. Anything we do, there is no such thing as a small action. We plant a seed with everything we do, everything we say, every gesture we make. You might not think it's any big deal when you are loving and kind to someone checking you out at the grocery store. But it could be a really big thing, and it is. And when we plant seeds of kindness and love in a small way, the universe will feed that, and it will grow and develop, and it will come back, and we'll find people loving us. And if we're doing the opposite, right? I mean, we're planting seeds of jealousy or criticism, that also grows. So the whole idea is to understand it's not immediate. Sometimes it's immediate, but very often it's late. It comes later. And it's important to understand that we live in this consequential universe, a universe of consequentiality. Every seed we plant will bear fruit. And so we can make a practice. This is the discipline that brings freedom and joy in our relationships. Practice planting seeds of loving kindness and caring in our relationships with others, and it does come back. It always comes back in ways we might not ever recognize. Sometimes we can see it, sometimes we can't. But that's the underlying idea. And then another idea I just want to share, if I have time. Yeah, I think is the idea that I mentioned earlier about the way our mind and our body are connected, because this is very important to understand, and this is also very important with our relationships, because very often people can be eating really healthy food, exercising every day, all these things, maybe even meditating and so forth, but there's still a lot of disharmony in their body. Maybe they have all kinds of sickness and problems. Why is that? Very often it's relationship stuff. It's past wounds. They're still upset with their mother or their father or their ex-husband or wife or who knows, whatever. And our body will mirror and manifest very often what's going on in our mind. And so I'll just tell a brief story where I really could see this quite clearly. And it was when I was younger. I think I was only about 22 maybe, or no, maybe 24, something like that. And I was living in a Tibetan Buddhist meditation center in San Francisco. And I went on a retreat up in the woods of Oregon, a little tiny cabin. It was just about the size of my body. It wasn't very much bigger. Little tiny cabin. It was a retreat cabin. And I went in there for quite a few months, all by myself, to meditate. And there was two people there that were helping, and they would drop some food off and ring a bell. And I'd hear the bell and I'd pick up the food once a week. And so I never saw a soul, and I was just completely alone for that whole time. And so I was meditating and I was doing prostrations. It was a prostration practice, very physical work. And as this was going on, after maybe 6 or 7 weeks, I got into a completely altered state of consciousness. When you don't see anyone and you're all alone and you're just meditating and doing prostrations, full prostrations out on the floor, full, really thousands and thousands and thousands of prostrations. But anyway, as I was doing this, one day, one evening, I suddenly got a very sharp pain in my back. It really hurt. It was like, oh, I couldn't bend forward without this stabbing pain in my back. And I was like, what the heck? So I remember I sat on the little bed that was in there and I started writing. I had a little journal. I was writing in my journal, like, what's going on? Why? No, wait, actually, no, I'm not telling the story right. So I got that pain in my bed, in my back. I went to bed. I spent the night. I slept. And I thought, hopefully it'll be good in the morning. I got up in the morning and I sat, and it was still dark, and I started meditating. And the pain was there. It was just as bad as it was the day before. And so as I was sitting in meditation, a voice, it was like I heard this voice say, a pain in the body is a pain in the mind. It was so clearly said, a pain in the body is a pain in the mind. And I thought, what's that mean exactly? So I got up on the bed. My back was still hurting like heck. And I started writing. That's when I started writing in my journal. So what does this mean? A pain in the body is a pain in the mind. And as I was writing, it became clear to me, in my case, what it meant. And what it meant was, as I was writing, I realized as a little boy, I was really very outgoing, happy. I had a really wonderful childhood, I have to say. My father, my mother, they were great. And so I was very happy. But when I got a little bit older, I started getting more afraid. And maybe when I was, I guess, a young teen, something like that, getting judged, getting rejected, romantic relationships got to be kind of like, what do I do now? And so I just started pulling back. I got glasses. I had to, all these different things. And I could feel that the energy shifted at that point. And there was this deep pain in me still from that. Like the young little boy just loved to reach out to the world and loved to just connect. But then later I was like, no, it's kind of scary. I pulled back. And so after all these weeks of deep meditation, I could see clearly the whole process. And I could also realize that these past wounds had no effect on the infinite eternal consciousness that is my true nature. And so I just felt that. I could feel it. It's like, all right, I love you, little boy. I love both of you. You're great. But not, what I am is not subject to all that old stuff. And so I just got up off the bed. I reached down, picked up the gallon of water I had on the floor. There was no pain, and it was gone. That was it, permanent. It was a permanent healing. And I realized how if instead of that, if I had said, oh gosh, I get this pain in my back, I better go to a doctor. I better try to get some kind of a thing, some kind of a painkiller or have an operation done. And the problem is, maybe it would have worked. Maybe it wouldn't have. I still would have had the pain because I didn't resolve it. Or maybe it would have, somehow worked. But then the underlying disharmony is still not addressed. I'm still holding back from life. I'm still deluded. And so it's going to manifest as something else. Who knows? It could be, who knows, an accident, so-called accident, oh, I had an accident, an accident or cancer, who knows, whatever. So it's really important for us to understand that we can purify our consciousness and we can go deeper in our consciousness to connect with the underlying beauty and truth that we are, and that is the healing power. That's how spiritual healing operates in many ways. It's just learning to see ourselves as we are, not as a limited object locked in space and time in a prison, and seeing that with other people as well. But as we free them and we free ourselves, we allow healing to flow into our life. And I think this is really the underlying idea in the spiritual teachings. It's not to try to change anybody else outside of us. It's to bring ourself into alignment and into harmony with our true nature. And that is the discipline that gives freedom. It's the practice of living correctly. We can learn to live our lives in alignment with the universal principles that give liberation to all living beings. And so instead of trying to change other people, we work on ourselves, and then out of our life, a fragrance is emitted, and it's just in our eyes, it's in our gestures, it's in our words, it's in how we live our life. So I want to thank all of you for your kind attention. Thank you to the Unity Clear Lake Center for the opportunity to share a few thoughts here, and thank you, Barbara. And I'll stop here. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Will. I mean, of course, amazing and wonderful. And everyone, just a few short announcements, and then Will be playing the closing song, and at the end. And so let me just let you know. Okay. Well, here's mine. Okay. Oh, I'm of course still thinking about everything. But anyway, so just next week at church, the beauty of gratitude. And at church, we will be having a autumn potluck, we're calling it. And Bill Barrows will be there doing the music. And if you've been going, is a raffle going on, and we'll be finding out who wins. And then in the following week, Reverend Dave Lyman will be doing a Zoom service, Open Gratitude. Do they really work? He's always terrific. We hope you'll join Dave, and Bill Barrows again for the beautiful music. And so then, just to note that, donations are greatly appreciated. Mail to P.O. Box 755, Lower Lake 95457. P.O. Box 755, Lower Lake 95457. And after Will's closing song, we will have a short chat time. I shouldn't say short. We'll be having a chat time. Okay, so Will, time for you. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. Yeah, I'll just play a short piece of music here at the end. And as I said earlier, every melody comes out of silence and returns to silence. And each one of us perhaps can be seen as a melody that emerges from silence and returns to silence. And in the Zen tradition, there's a koan, a meditation question called "What is the sound of one hand clapping?" That's the question. What is the sound of one hand clapping? So we know what the sound of two hands clapping is, right? If I clap my hands, what that represents is the phenomenal world of appearances. Everything that we can see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think about. That's the world of two hands clapping that we call reality. So Zen, like any spiritual tradition that's authentically going for the truth, says, okay, well, what is the sound of one hand clapping? In other words, what is the source of this world? What is the source of what we are? That's what we really need to discover. So I'd like to play a piece of music now that basically you can listen to it that way, like as a meditation. Listen for not only for the sounds, the notes and the patterns of music, but listen also for the silence within the patterns of sounds. The sound of one hand clapping within the sound of two hands clapping. So it's the silence within the music. Enjoy.
Thank you.